There are many big fights out there that MMA fans dream of, but there have been certain obstacles to make these fights a reality. So here is 10 fantasy fights in the UFC. Number 10. A matchup between the current UFC bantamweight champion Cody Garbrandt and the current UFC flyweight champion Demetrius would be a fast-paced, exciting fight to see. Cody Garbrandt possesses one of the most fastest and heaviest hands in the bantamweight division, where he only needs to land a clean punch to end the fight. On the other hand, Demetrius is one of the most complete fighters on the UFC roster today. He has made his opponents look like nothing and has completely outclassed all of his competition. The likelihood of this fight happening is very high, as recently Cody Garbrandt mentioned that he wants to fight Demetrius at 125 pounds and believes he could make the cut down to the flyweight division. It would be interesting to see how Cody Garbrandt would perform at flyweight and how Demetrius would deal with the aggressiveness of Cody Garbrandt. Number 9. A matchup between former UFC bantamweight champion Dillashaw and recently retired fighter Urijah Faber would have been very intriguing to see. Urijah Faber helped introduce the sport of mixed martial arts to Dillashaw and helped him become a world champion. When TJ decided he would be moving to Colorado full-time to train with Dwayne Ludwig, this news didn't settle well with Urijah Faber and the rest of Team Alpha Male, as he felt that TJ had been disloyal to the team who helped him reach the top. When TJ was the champion, there were many occasions that a fight with Urijah Faber could have happened, but Urijah felt as though he didn't need to fight TJ, as he had helped him get started in the sport, and the fight never materialized. Number 8. A matchup between current UFC featherweight champion Aldo and the former UFC bantamweight champion Dominick Cruz would be a very interesting fight to see. Both fighters came into the UFC as champions of the WEC, where they both had cleaned out their divisions. As of right now, Aldo has a number of new contenders coming up, and Dominick Cruz just lost his title to Cody Garbrandt. There will be a high chance of this fight happening if Dominick Cruz is able to win back his title, or if Dominick Cruz decides to move up to the featherweight division in the future. It would be interesting to see how Aldo would deal with the movement of Dominick Cruz, and also how Dominick Cruz would deal with Aldo's aggressive fighting style. Number 7. A matchup between former UFC heavyweight champion Velasquez and the current UFC light heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier would be amazing to see. Both fighters train at American Kickboxing Academy and have said that they have no desire to face each other. Before Daniel Cormier made the drop down to the light heavyweight division, he had fought as a heavyweight, where he has notable wins over Antonio Silva, Josh Barnett, Frank Mir and Roy Nelson. I believe Daniel Cormier has the potential to become the UFC heavyweight champion, but he won't fight in the weight class because of his teammate Velasquez. Both fighters have a different fighting style, and it will be interesting to see how both fighters would do against each other if they ever competed. Number 6. When Chuck Liddell was in his prime, he was the UFC heavyweight champion and had defended his title 4 times, where he was just brutally knocking everyone out. One thing many people won't know is that he was an NCAA Division I wrestler. He used his high-level wrestling to stuff takedowns and keep the fight on the feet. One fight that would be exciting to see is Chuck Liddell in his prime versus Jon Jones. It would be interesting to see how Jon Jones would handle the power of Chuck Liddell and how Chuck Liddell would deal with Jon Jones's reach and his unpredictable fighting style. Number 5. When Ronda Rousey was the champion, she quite easily dismantled her opponents within minutes. Many had thought that Cris Cyborg was the only female fighter who had the chance to beat Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey was willing to fight Cris Cyborg under the condition that she made the 135-pound limit. When Cris Cyborg tested positive for steroids in 2011, Ronda Rousey started talking trash, saying that Cris Cyborg couldn't make the weight limit due to her steroid abuse. This didn't sit well with Cris Cyborg, and she started demanding to fight Ronda Rousey at a catch weight of 140 pounds. When Holly Holm knocked out Ronda Rousey at UFC 193, she removed herself from the MMA world. Since that time, Cris Cyborg made a long-awaited UFC debut, defeating Leslie Smith and Lena Landsberg by TKO. Even though this would arguably be the biggest female fight in history, this is one of them fights that may never happen. Number 4. A matchup between former UFC welterweight champion George St. Pierre and the former UFC middleweight champion Anderson Silva would be exciting to see. Both fighters held titles in their weight class for a long period of time, where they pretty much cleaned out their divisions. There was always talk of both fighters facing off in a super fight, but the bout never materialized. It would be very exciting to see both fighters fight each other in their prime, to see who the better fighter was. It would have been interesting to see how GSP would have handled Anderson Silva's unpredictable fighting style, and how Anderson Silva would have handled GSP's well-rounded fighting style. Number 3. A matchup between former UFC heavyweight champion Velasquez and the former UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones would be a fascinating fight to see. Velasquez is a cardio machine who uses his high-level wrestling to completely overpower his opponents. Jon Jones, who uses his unpredictable fighting style to always have his opponents guessing, mixing his striking with his takedowns. The chances of this fight happening is very slim, as Velasquez is struggling to remain healthy and Jon Jones is focused on getting his belt back. If it did happen, it would be interesting to see how Jon Jones would deal with Velasquez's aggressive fighting style and how Velasquez would deal with Jon Jones's reach and his ability to outwork his opponent. Number 2. Back in 2013, Anderson Silva had almost cleaned out the middleweight division and had defended his title 10 times. Another champion who was also cleaning out his division was Jon Jones. At that time, he had defended his UFC light heavyweight title 5 times, which started talks of a possible super fight between both fighters. Anderson Silva teased a potential move to the light heavyweight division, but didn't commit to it. Anderson Silva next lost his title to Chris Weidman and wasn't able to get his belt back. It would have been amazing to see a fight between Anderson Silva in his prime against Jon Jones. Both fighters have a unique fighting style, and it would have been interesting to see how both fighters would have dealt with each other's fighting style. Number 1. When Brock Lesnar was the UFC heavyweight champion, many fans wanted to see how he would do against MMA legend Fedor Emelianenko. Both fighters had a unique fighting style and matched up great against each other. The UFC president Dana White mentioned that he was so close to signing Fedor, but both parties couldn't come to an agreement. His plans were to do a big Dallas, Texas stadium show with Brock Lesnar and Fedor Emelianenko headlining the card. It is a massive shame that this fight didn't materialize, as it would have possibly been the biggest fight in MMA history.